then finally got a road bike. And let me tell you, it's not the bike that makes the rider. Like, you have to put miles in, and I'm just lucky I didn't die on that, because every turn was just like, oh my gosh, another hill. Oh my gosh, another hill. And then it just makes you realize, like, you have to train specifically. Like, if you want to do really good in high rocks, you're gonna have to run a lot. You know, all the other strength-based stuff, like the sled pull, the sled drag, you get very good at that in a very short amount of time, but there's nothing that's going to make up time like specifically training your running.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Real Training, Better Living podcast with me, Tommy, and then obviously my co-host, Mr. Chris. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be delving into the client journey. And I got obsessed with this concept when early in my days with Two Brain Business, because they literally asked me the question of like, how, like, map out someone reaches out to you to when they leave. What does that entire process look like? And I'm like, I have no clue. I kind of have an idea, but I have no clue. And so really started going down the rabbit hole, and similar to episode 1, the thought process and how we think about the client journey, I like to also call it the hero's journey, because they're the hero at the end of the day. We're just the guide, how that has evolved over time too. And so Chris and I are going to jam on kind of the 3 different distinct phases I like to think about people are in throughout the client journey, because each phase we're trying to do something slightly different, but we're also trying to progress them to the next phase. And the reason behind that is because we want to make sure people are taking full control or autonomy over their health. At the end of the day, I think as human beings, right, we're naturally kind of wired to be like, hey, like, I kind of want to take care of myself, right? That's just kind of how we are. And so we want to very much have that be a cornerstone of our business. So why is it important, Chris? Like, just in general, like, why someone coming into the gym, and they all say the same thing, want to look good, feel good, which we used to just say, cool, you want to look good, feel good, we're going to do CrossFit. And that's not really the case anymore. Like, why, in your opinion, is it super important to better understand individuals who are walking into the gym?
Kind of goes into like that 2 whys or 3 whys. It's like, why do you want to do this? It's like, because I want to look good naked. It's like, okay, why? And it's like, I don't know, because I want to be more fit, or some like arbitrary thing. And it just starts establishing trust. It's like, all right, are the words you're saying actually true, and you believe them, and you want to do this thing? If it's as simple as like, I just want to be more fit, okay, then why? All right. And then they're like, oh, I want to be, again, going back to our clients, it's, I want to be there for my kids, I want to be there for my parents, I want to do XYZ thing. It's like, those are more important, tangible reasons why we want to, get them on that journey.
In terms of like, in episode 1, we talked about like working with all different types of clients, and you having to pull out different tools out of your toolbox depending on where that client is. So like for you, have you ever had like a story where you really failed a client, where you felt like you failed a client because it was the wrong tool for the wrong job?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. No, I piss excellence.
You're like, I'm perfect. I'm batting.
No, we've talked about ego before, and I feel like I have killed my ego, especially when it comes to training enough where I'm like, this isn't working after like a set, and I'm just going to deviate. And, let's talk about Kyla, because she doesn't want to like go over certain amounts of weight or stress her back because of fear of hurting her low back. And I think there's a massive, I don't even know what percentage of the population deals with low back pain. Like, let's just call it, 50% of people over the age of 40 deal with low back pain. And, meeting people where they're at, I tried RDLs. It's like, we're not going to do that. Kettlebell swings. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to let this 50-pound object pendulum between my legs, and you want me to bring it back up to my collarbone. Like, probably not the best tool for the job. And so they're, using tools to provide a better level of stability and allow her to brace her core more and feel safe. Those are tools that worked well, and just scrap it. If it's not working with it, and maybe, you could make an argument that I jumped the gun or took away something too soon, but I think it's just, I don't want that person to get hurt. I want to keep establishing trust, and I don't want them to be like, this trainer hurt my back because he thought I could do something that I wasn't prepared to do. Right.
And because she's been with us now for over a year, from before being pregnant, having her baby, and then coming out, and she's back to like probably the best shape she's ever been in. I think you've been highly successful in giving the right tool for the job, because putting her into an environment of like, let's say, large group setting, like, even semi-private setting, like it's just not the setting or the environment that she's going to respond well to. And shout out to Kyla Lynn, one of the best realtors in the Houston Heights. So just so she gets a plug too. Let's talk about the different phases. So from observation, working with people, failing forward, like all these things, I've learned there's really 3 distinct phases people got to go through. First, you have the reclaim phase, which I think the best way I could describe reclaim is like you've been out of the game for a while because you've been focusing on building a family, really building a career, and the priority hasn't been on you or taking care of yourself. And believe it or not, I think just because of the neighborhood that we're in, we get a lot of those people. Like just, I haven't done this in a while and I know I need to do something, but I don't know what's right. And you guys seem to be a little bit more professional and controlled about what you do. Like, is there anyone that comes to mind when I describe that phase that way where you're like, yeah, like this person needed this?
Yeah, definitely. So last year you and I did, I think it was a nutrition seminar, and we were talking about reclaiming the different phases we're in. And Carol Anselmini, she had just gotten out of like her hip surgery, and I think she was cleared hot to resume activity. And she was like, I'm putting myself in a reclaim phase. And she's been a member for how long?
I mean, Carol's been with us for over a decade now.
Yeah. So she has checked her ego. She has put herself into that box wisely, I think. And she even tailored back from large group to go to semi-private so that she can actually function on rebuilding herself and reclaiming her fitness. And I think semi-private, like, and she still comes to large group for like a couple times a week. And Carol is like a perfect example of like, take a step back, reevaluate, reclaim, and then move forward. And I think Carol's like 10 steps ahead of where she was last year when she was kind of moving into this phase.
Yeah. And I think like to your point, like kind of tapping on like, what are the physical aspects of the reclaim phase? I think a lot of these people are chronic pain, post-surgery, post-physical therapy. So they're like, okay, like I finished the 3 months post-surgery with my physical therapist. Now I need to start getting back to just a baseline, right? Like you can imagine with certain surgeries, major strength imbalances, like left to right, whatever it is, it's like, let's just get you back to a healthy baseline. These people could be incredibly deconditioned. I think of when you worked with
John.
Yeah, John. You want to speak with John about like what was he dealing? Because there's nothing actually wrong with John. He had great flexibility, but what were we solving with John?
Yeah, John, like Tommy said, John had really good mobility, flexibility. He actually demonstrated a fair amount of control. He was just, coming out of a period of probably like 2 decades or possibly 3 decades of borderline complete inactivity. And coming out of that, yes, he had football. I think he did football or played football in college. And he had a fitness background, but it's just so far removed. Like, I mean, I've been alive 3 decades. I can't imagine like just not doing anything for 3 decades. So it's just, meet him where he's at again, reclaim his fitness, start the process. And I saw really, really great results with him. And I think I only worked with John for like maybe 4 months.
Yeah. But what were some of the things you were doing with John? Like at least initially, what were the things he could actually tolerate? Like,
yeah. So we were doing maybe like 2 sets of certain exercises. Like it was very, very basic because just there's all the science and evidence-based practices of like how many sets per week and sets per day, et cetera. And you can get a lot of good results with 5 to 10. And it was just like, we're bare bonesing this. We're not loading anything. We're doing lots of isometrics, lots of holds, just some of the most boring training you can imagine, but just like, let's move this, 10-pound object under a lot of control, get fast stand up from the bottom of a squat, and dialing things back so that it's like actual functional for his life and what he does.
Yeah. And so I remember like working with John on the health side of things, like the way I would describe somebody in the reclaim phase on the lifestyle side is you're very reactionary. So like you're not planning anything or thinking ahead. It's very much like, oh, is that fast food in front of me? I'm going to grab it. Or like, constantly on your phone. So not able to fall asleep. You're reacting emotionally. So like stress wise, you're just like, you're hot or cold. And usually like trying to get people back to a baseline is just giving them a basic understanding of like, what's the biggest bottleneck that's creating this for you? And then solving that problem that cascades down into solving other problems. So for most people, it's like stress related, which really kind of goes back to sleep related, but you kind of chip away at these things and get people back to the healthy baseline of like, okay, we are being more thoughtful about our food practice. We are, not doom scrolling late at night on our phone. And like, we are getting decent sleep. And so that's kind of the reclaim phase. Most people tend to stay in that environment anywhere between 2 to 6 months in our gym, right? Like once we kind of tackle the big things, you'd be surprised how quickly you can change your life in terms of just movement, but also lifestyle. The phase after that is what I call like the ascend phase. So once we get to like the ascend phase, you already have a good baseline. We're back to like, okay, cool. A good foundation is there. Let's build upon it in a controlled way, not like crazy, but like now let's like really reinforce these new habits that we've put in. So when you think of the ascend phase, I think of we're probably still trying to solve one or two lifestyle things, but movement wise, we're just starting to build capacity. So do you want to speak to that a little bit about like what clients kind of come to mind where you're like, okay, we're still new to this, but I'm not really solving anything specific anymore?
I guess you could say Carol to a degree. I think she's like rapidly approaching our third phase, where she's still just kind of trying to figure out like what modalities work best for her, or what modifications on like a Saturday partner workout work best for her without necessarily relying on me, Christy, Bryce, Lexi, Josh. And in semi-private, she's doing, from what I see, I rarely get to coach Carol, unfortunately, but from what I can see, like just, out of the side of my vision, she is seeing a lot of good progress. She's operating under control, working with a lot of good modifications to control her tempo, increase her intensity slowly but surely. And as far as, I guess, one-on-one clients, I mean, you could make an argument that Brad is in the ascend phase where it's just, we've solved the problem where his left shoulder was like just not cooperating at all and maybe like 2 years ago at this point, his left shoulder was completely paralyzed and now he's got full functionality of it. And right now it's just, he needs no autonomy. He wants to have the one-on-one attention, and it's just choosing right exercises that solve the problems he wants.
100%. Yeah. The way I would kind of describe the ascend phase, like in my mind, when I think about like, how do you know you're in this phase, right? Like, so to listeners or even to members, right? There's probably some minor strength imbalances we need to address, right? So there's still some things where I'm like, yeah, like your right arm is dramatically stronger than your left. You're right. So putting those people directly in a large group, I know if I put a barbell in their hands, that will always be their limiting factor. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not talking about like all of us have asymmetries in our body, but like I'm talking about like major stuff, like usually happens post-surgery, but like, yeah, we got some strength imbalances kind of going on. You're really looking to learn, right? Like, strength and conditioning is a newer concept to you. They don't come from an athletic or military background like you do. It's more like, I've never done this before in my life and I need to do it in a controlled environment, right? Difference between capacity for quality of life and maximizing physical expression. So like, I think of like when you get to large group, you're kind of at this fork in the road where you really could push maximal physical expression if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. I think of like ascend is we're giving you enough volume to where you can have amazing quality of life. You can say yes to all activities that you want to do. If you want to go beyond that, let's talk about it. If you don't, you're still doing enough to support your life, right? And then the last thing is like the basic lifestyle habits are built. Now we're just refining, right? Like kind of what season of life are you in? Or are we about to get into summer break with the kids? And so like stress might be a little bit higher because now we got to deal with a lot more, just stuff like that. We're kind of refining, but you're still kind of learning how to apply different tools to your own life to kind of navigate all those different seasons of life. That's how I would describe ascend. But then the final phase is we get into this self-mastery phase, which I think is the most fun. And not to say like, I think Reclaim is awesome. I love working with Reclaim Reclaim members because it's like, there's so much learning and guidance and transformation going on. Mm-hmm. Ascend is so much fun because people start to realize like, oh, I didn't know I was capable than more, right? But then you get to the self-mastery phase where you're like, oh, it's on. Like, where do I want to take this? Because if you guys think about it, right? Like in the gym, it really should be supporting things you want to do outside the gym. Like we're kind of like the lab, right? Like we're going to mess around in here, but then let's go outside and use it for something productive, right? So self-mastery phase, like I typically describe as, I want to hear what kind of examples you have, but like, really we've solved most of the lifestyle problems. We sleep well, stress is under control, nutrition or food practices under control. We're moving a lot. We got great social connections. Mindset is solid, right? You have the option or choice to stay in the gym and really just see how strong can we get? Mm-hmm. How much endurance can we build? Or you can start to explore like what you want to do with your health and fitness. Maybe it's competitions, maybe it's adventures like mountaineering or hiking or like whatever you want to do. But do you want to speak to that a little bit? Some clients that kind of come to mind where you're like, yeah, they're definitely in self-mastery, where we're trying to see like how far can I take this?
Yeah. It's self-mastery. Like you said, it's arguably one of the most fun phases because it's Gus, he is getting ready to move to Miami. And I'm like, Gus, I need you to be autonomous. Like I literally tell him that every session. He's like, okay. And he's like starting to write stuff down and like, take ownership of every aspect. He's like, all right, how much is on there? And today we're like benching. He's like, that's 50 pounds. I was like, no, that's not. This is important now to like know what numbers we're looking at. And he's like, super interested in exactly what he's doing and Gus is probably one of the most driven individuals I think I've met in my life. Like he's just like, I'm going to go do this thing, and he does it. And again, like he's just like, what can I do in the gym? I want to be stronger upper body, Chris. I want my lower body to be stronger. And we're just going to like, I'm giving him the tools to then once he moves to go and do that on his own. So he's the first example. And then, another secondary example is looking at like Abby and Shelby. Shelby, big time runner. Abby is her wife. And, they just signed up for High Rocks, and they've done a handful of individual design training with me. They did Christy's High Rocks course training for that. So they were in the lab and then they tested it. And all the people at District H that did High Rocks, those are people in self-mastery because they were just like, you know what? I'm confident. Like I want to test my metal. Is this going to stand up to an actual pressure test, which High Rocks was. And, it's just like, let's go have some fun. You don't have to go into the gym. Like the gym, like you said, it's just a lab. We're testing things out, seeing how we can operate. And now we got to like, am I going to break?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of different aspects of self-mastery I want to unpack with you. So like the one thing I want to talk about first is more isn't always better. Right. Do you want to speak to that real quick of like self-mastery doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, how fit can I possibly get? I mean, like it could be, but there's trade-offs to that, right? Do you want to speak to that real quick and maybe some of the work you did with Abby?
Yeah, that was exactly who I was going to bring up. So Abby, I did some individual design with her last year, and she's like, I want to be a lot stronger, Chris. And I gave her like my kind of standardized template of like what I factually know. It's like, this is the easiest, simplest solution for you to get really strong in a very short amount of time. And unfortunately, there's, a set of 20 occasionally throughout that. And she's just like doing the squats and she's getting stronger and she's seeing progress. And she's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, Chris. And I was like, that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. And she's like, I just want to do, XYZ thing. And I was like, good. Yeah. Like, and that's being exposed to something and then wanting to tailor back.
Yeah.
And that I think is a perfect example of self-mastery where it's like, dip your toe in the water, see how it feels. And you're like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. And I think it's super important to like just call that out for members and even potential members where it's like, look, you need to explore that stuff. You need to explore the edges of like, how much does this actually matter to me? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, it's okay to say like, I need to go a different direction. Yeah. Or this matters to me a lot. I really want to do it. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's do it for a while, but it doesn't have to be like this identity. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It's like, no, let's just maybe get after it for 3 months and then we'll rotate back. Like,
exactly. And that's, there's like, this is not a disparaging comment to you, Abby. And if you feel it is, you can whoop my butt later. But, it's just, one of the things that reasonings behind it is she's like, I just want to be in the community. Yeah. I love spending time with my friends, kind of unwinding after work. And that is, that I think is like the true self-mastery, being like, I am not in the right space for this right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And the example I have like for me is Summer. So Summer's a great example of like, she started out working one-on-one with me because she was very much in the reclaim phase. She had been a very high stress consultant for a very long time. And so like, we never measured it, but I'm sure her cortisol would have set records. Like it was insane. Right. And that had cascading effects in her life. But once she kind of got through the different phases and we're getting into self-mastery, she's kind of like, I have specific strength goals I want to do. Okay, cool. And the way we discussed it was there's no right or wrong. There's only trade-offs. So if you want to hit these goals as quickly as possible, are you willing to give up group sessions? She's like, I've never thought about that before. I'm like, well, do you want the quickest way to your goals or do you want like there to be balance? And initially we started off with, I want a balanced approach because what mattered to her, even though she had these strength goals, what mattered to her was the community matters to me. For my own mental health, for where I'm at in life, like this matters to me. Okay, cool. Let's build this solution around how do we balance strength training with kind of like similar to Abby, like I want to be plugged in and not just isolated. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's even evolved for her since then, like where she's like, okay, like I really want to get after these goals. And now she's doing half her sessions at LA Fitness because like that's the machines that she needs to be successful. So again, like I just, with self-mastery, like more isn't necessarily better, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to explore what you're capable of and you're kind of navigating these trade-offs depending on what season of life you're in. Like I always go back to that because it's like you'll be in seasons where, and I'm sure you're like this too with your own training, like let's go, let's get after it. And then other seasons you're like, I am exhausted. Like let's just keep it simple. Like
Yeah.
especially with the newborn, right? It's just like how do I get this in, like you know, efficiently. The other thing I think can be something to unpack in terms of like the people that in self-mastery phase that do want to compete. If you were to give them advice, like, okay, cool, like let's do this competition, let's actually aim for something, like and maybe not even advice, but like, why do you feel like sometimes it's important to have that carrot out in front of you? Like have that goal that you're actually striving for, bringing intention to your training again.
So another really good question. I think it's just, let's look at what we're trying to accomplish. All right. Whether it's like, I'm going to go compete in my first CrossFit competition or High Rocks competition and do really well. Cause you don't want to just go in and kind of go through it. And I'm going to talk about Christy Kyle because when she told me about High Rocks, and I think I heard this through the grapevine that it was just like, or no, I'm sorry. It wasn't Christy Kyle. It was Dylan and Tamara.
Yeah.
They were just like, we just want to finish. And then they did very well.
Yep.
And they both, I think, agreed that they could have ran a little bit faster. And I think they 100% could have ran a little bit faster because they're both really good athletes. You know, taking a step back, I will give an example of myself and something that I wish I had done differently with my training is that having a competition in front of me, I did a century ride in like 4 bike rides. I did 25 miles, didn't have clip-on shoes. I was just pressing down for 25 miles and I cramped viciously. Then second one, I had a hybrid bike, not a road bike, not a carbon bike. It was like 20 pounds of steel and riding this up all the hills and mountains of New Jersey. Terrible experience. 75-mile bike ride. Finally got a carbon. No, actually I was still on a metal bike, did that. And it was like, that was also really terrible. Then finally got a road bike, and let me tell you, it's not the bike that makes the rider. Like you have to put miles in, and I'm just lucky I didn't die on that because every turn was just like, oh my gosh, another hill. Oh my gosh, another hill. And that is just like mental fortitude, you know, pat myself on my own back. And then it just makes you realize like you have to train specifically. Like if you want to do really good in High Rocks, you're gonna have to run a lot. You know, all the other strength-based stuff like the sled pull, the sled drag, you get very good at that in a very short amount of time, but there's nothing that's going to make up time like specifically training your running, which is exactly what I think Coach Christy did with her training program. Was like, this is endurance. This is going to tie in directly to your High Rocks training. Yeah,
no, Christy's one of the best. I think too, like, as you and I have been training, I would say at a high level, we have a very advanced training age. Maybe that'd be the best way to say it, right? Like you and I have been doing multiple versions of strength and conditioning for a very long time. Like, have you gone through periods where you set a specific goal for yourself? Like, I'm just going to accomplish this. And then have you gone through other seasons where you're like, I just want to maintain rhythm. It's just part of who I am. And I just got to you want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, you have brought up, like, I have a newborn, you know, Ellie is 4.5 months at this point. And right now, and even for the last couple of months, I'm just like, we need to get a workout in and I'm going to expedite this. And, you know, taking less rest, I'm just turning like a strength phase into like a weird kind of quasi HIIT / CrossFit training session where it's like, okay, we're going to bench and then we're going to do pull-ups. And like, that's literally one of my favorite things, or squat and pull-ups, something in pull-ups. And it's just like, what do I need to do right now to be successful with my physical training and hit my goals? And right now it's literally just like, do the 20-minute session, because it's like, that's time that I will not get back. And I think you and I would both agree as parents, it's like time is the most valuable commodity and you don't get any of that back.
Yeah. And I think like what's probably like interesting for a lot of the members who've known me for a long time is I used to be the most competitive guy in the gym. And like, even before James, my 5-year-old came in around, like, Dustin and I would always like reminisce about these 3-hour training days. And it's amazing how, like, just as life changes, your priorities change. And I think it's okay to be in that stage where just having rhythm, just being like, hey, like, I just want to make sure I stay fit, stay healthy, whatever. But I also want to challenge members to think about like, but I also want to push you out of your comfort zone every once in a while. Like, I think it's just like setting a goal, training for it, and then testing yourself under pressure. I just think there's so many great life lessons that come from that entire process that carries over into all aspects of life. Family, your career, just being able to do hard things. Like, not to, you know, I don't want to get all David Goggins about it, but like, you know what I mean? Like, where it's like, you know how to test yourself, and it's good to be able to know you can rise to the occasion. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I just agree, like, simply agree. It's because if you know, I think we mentioned this off the podcast, but it's, flexibility as a trainer, it's, right tool, right job. You're either going to bend or you're going to break. And it's much better to bend because at least you're like, you moved with something, because it's like, if you want to go into a strict powerlifting thing, your entire training, like I don't think that our large group population understands the intensity that you have to be at to go into a powerlifting competition. Yeah. And I think you and Dustin are uniquely equipped to tell them about just a weightlifting, like the structure and the capacity. And it's like, everything takes a back seat, and it's like your one focus. It's like single, like we're working on power snatches and all the variations of it, or squat snatch and all the variations of it, or clean and all the variations of it. And that's what your priority is. For cyclists, it's like, all right, we're going to do a lot of cycling and a lot of squatting and just like train legs, and your upper body's like, we're not going to do that at all. Yeah. And, modulating to put yourself in those situations. And it's like, more so than the physical aspect, it's like, how long can you tolerate doing this one thing for 6 months or a year before you're like, all right, I feel really good to go and test myself into weightlifting. Cause if I did 3 months of weightlifting, I'm like 195 right now. It would be embarrassing, like how bad I would probably do, simply because like 195 pound guy is probably like squat cleaning like 400 something pounds or more. And I have not squat clean 300 pounds. So 3 months, not enough training time.
Yeah. And I think so. Yeah. So again, like for members to think about, like, I want you guys to be thinking about, like, it's okay to stay in rhythm, always focus on consistency. And actually in the next episode, you and I will kind of unpack that hierarchy of success and like KPIs and stuff, but like, it's okay to be consistent, but like challenge yourself every once in a while. It doesn't have to be a competition. It could be, like Rob Hendrickson and I have this goal, like in our 40s, to do like K2. Or do not K2. Sorry, that's insane. What was I thinking? What's the one in Alaska?
Mount McKinley.
But what's the new name now?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember. I know.
You know exactly what I mean? Yes. Yeah. Or Mount Rainier, or one of them. Yeah, like that's what we want to go do. And like, just again, like we've been in the game for so long. We've built this fitness. Like, let's just go have fun with it. Let's go use it for something. Go play pickleball. Like, go pick up stuff and pick up sports. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, the self-mastery phase. I've noticed, as just a consumer, a professional, and a business owner in the industry, I noticed that recently a lot of businesses that are coming out try to throw people into this phase automatically. They're just saying, hey, here's a watered down version of whether it's group fitness or whatever. And we're just we're going to take you, who, whether it's Brian Alexander or John Alexander, or it's Jessica Feinstein, or for me, it's Jessica Cantrell or Stella Pullman, or like all these people. And we're just going to throw you into a setting where it really works well for people in the self-mastery phase. Do you want to speak to that real quick?
If you have good coaches, like if you take Stella and put her into a session with, any one of our coaches, I think Stella would do pretty good for the most part. Even I think all of our clients would do fairly well, but it's going to require your coach to be as you've mentioned before, the guide, because they're going to be like, we're going to modify stuff. Cause let's just say Stella couldn't hang from the bar to do like a strict knee raise. All right. Your coach needs to be wise enough to change that, but can we keep the stimulus the same? Right. And that's why, coaches, it's our responsibility to modify things to keep the stimulus of the workout, optimal or in line with everything that's going on. If they just were traveling and they went to, CrossFit, so-and-so, probably not going to work out well because they don't understand all the intricacies of that client. Yep. And they're just like, oh, this is a random person that is like giving me the $20 or buying my t-shirt and they're about to do Murph.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And like, I think it's the easy thing to do. Like when I think about like, oh yeah, it's just easy to take someone's money and just say like, hey, I'm going to put you into this environment that everybody goes into. But I think it doesn't do the individual justice. And I'm actually proud that we built our organization around like, no, like we'll have the hard conversation with you of like, hey, I just don't think you're ready yet, but I'll tell you what it takes for you to be ready and give you a roadmap on how to get there. But it's up to you on whether or not you're going to take my advice or not. Right. I just think the industry continues to lean into profit maximization. How do we make a business model work from a dollars and cents standpoint? But we're starting to neglect what's actually beneficial for the person. Because that's the hard thing to do, right? To your point, that means I got to hire the right people. I got to train the right people. Got to create the structure for them to, all the hard things, right? It's just much easier for me to hire, 22-year-old whatsoever and just say, hey, go cheerlead the heck out of them and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
definitely.
The other thing I want to talk about this phase is from a lifestyle standpoint, this is where you can start to also explore, I wouldn't necessarily say the healthier aspects of what you're capable of, but like, for example, like, we had a client, and I'll keep this one anonymous because it's related to the body, but like she wanted to see how lean she could get. She knew that long-term it wasn't sustainable, but she just wanted to see what it was like. I think in this phase, you can start to explore the edges of body composition, of performance, of all these things, knowing that it's a season of life that you're temporarily going to be in, and not this long-term, like, I'm going to be in this phase forever, right? It's just like, no, like, let's do this for a little bit of time, but know that this will end too.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that?
No, it's a really important part of your fitness journey. And, the cliche saying fitness is a lifestyle absolutely is a lifestyle. And you need to know that you being, like, let's just take a random, 40-year-old woman that's 5'4" and like 120 pounds. You're not safely going to be at 1,200 calories for like 6 months. It's just not going to happen. You're going to like, who knows if your period will stop. Like, we don't want that to happen. Right. And it's just not safe long term. So people in self-mastery that are like, okay, I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm going to be doing this for 3 months, and then I'm going to stop and back up to maintenance calories, whatever that means for this, random person. That is a great place to be, because not only do you have trust in your coach, but you have trust in yourself that you can abide by these standards.
Yep. Kind of just to wrap up this episode, like, if you're currently a member of District H, or you're interested in maybe kind of like knocking on our door and seeing what we're about, you can actually take an assessment online on our website to figure out what phase we'd recommend you in, because the phase is going to kind of dictate what our prescription is going to be. And a lot of it is like, I always say, it's like, it should be 80% prescriptive. Like, let me understand you. What are the things that you're battling? And like, here are the tools that would best solve that problem for you right now. But 20% of it should be like personal preference. Like, you and I work with clients that, I joke around with Stella because she's an animal, but like, Stella, you don't need me by your side. She just prefers it. Like, she just likes me that much if she ever gets to watch this. She puts up with my stupid jokes and all that stuff. But like, some people just have a preference, which is totally fine. I think you and I, what we're trying to do is just, we get you to a place where it's a want, not need relationship, right? Like, hey, I just really like hanging out with you guys in this environment. It works well for me. I don't have to think about it, but you and I have done our job. We've checked the box of like, yeah, but you have more than enough capacity to go do something else if you wanted to, or if you had to.
Absolutely.
Cool. With that, you guys, another episode of the Real Training Better Living podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.